did Dion go? It's not on. Sure. Supposed to be one light, Abdulaziz. One light, right? Testing. Yeah. Don't need it. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. طيب بسم الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. As we continue in this lesson, was considered the refreshers of these lessons that we've been consistently doing on Jumu'ah, and technically it's later to Sabt. But the time now is 7 o'clock p.m., Friday, October the 7th, 2025. بالتاريخ الميلادي الموافق للتاريخ الإسلامي الهجري ليلة 17 لا 16 16 بعد المغرب الموافق للتاريخ الإسلامي الهجري is currently the 16 من ربيع الثاني technically ليلة السبت عام 1447 بعد الهجرة, the year 1447 after the hijrah of the Prophet of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As we were discussing the matters pertaining to the conditions of al-wudu, as we talked about, this matter is connected with the salat. So keep in mind, everyone, we've been discussing the matters is connected with a shurut, the shurut of the prayer, and we stopped at the fourth condition, which is what, everyone? Which is pertaining to purification. So you'll find the shart al-rabi', which we stopped at, the fourth condition. That's pertaining, like we mentioned, to purification. So purification, as we mentioned, is from the conditions of the prayer, meaning that the prayer is not accepted except by it. So there's no one that's not in a state of purity, except that salah is what, everyone? Is invalid. Due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبَلُ صَلَاةَ أَحَدِكُمْ إِذَا أَحْدَثَ حَتَّى يَتَوَضَّأ. As it comes in the narration, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept the prayer of one of you if he's in a state of hadath until he makes wudu. Until he makes wudu, as we mentioned. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبَلُ صَلَاةَ أَحَدِكُمْ إِذَا أَحْدَثَ حَتَّى يَتَوَضَّأ, as we mentioned. So that narration, again, everyone, is something we discussed from last class. So again, we mentioned the conditions of the prayer. Is how many? We mentioned it is 9. And where did we stop at? We stopped at the fourth condition. So the fourth condition is purification, and that's pertaining to wudu. And we know wudu removes al-hadath, as we said. So that fourth condition also comprised of other conditions. So that's what we've been discussing since last class. So we have the shurut al-salah, the conditions of the prayer. Then we discuss or started in the shurut of what? Tahara, or purification, or wudu. So keep in mind that wudu also has its conditions. So you have shurut al-salah, and you also have shurut of what? Wudu. Shurut al-salah and shurut of what? Wudu. And we've been covering the matters that was pertaining, as we said, to the PDF that we've been using, which is in the description below for those who are looking online, especially on YouTube. For those who have the account on YouTube, you'll find that in the description is the PDF we're using, which is entitled Shurut al-Salah wa Arkanuha wa Wajibatuha by the great Imam Muhammad Abdur rahimahullah, rahmatu wasi'ah. So you'll find that the PDF is entitled The Conditions of the Salah, Its Pillars and Its Obligations. So keep in mind, we stopped at the conditions of wudu. So the conditions of wudu, we started by saying it is what, everyone? The first one is Islam. So similar to the salah. So for the conditions for wudu to be valid, number one needs to have Islam. One needs to be Muslim. Second, we mentioned again, what, everyone? The second? Aql. Aql. Second is sanity or intellect. Then the third is what? Tamyiz. Tamyiz we mentioned. And the fourth is what? Niyyah. Niyyah. Intention. So again, I'll mention it again one more time. So we mentioned shurut al-salah. Shurut al-salah is how many? 9. What's the first one? Islam. Second, aql. Third, tamyiz. Fourth, Rabī'ul hadath, which is what? Wudu. And that's where we're at now. So that's where we arrived, and that's where we stopped at from last class previously. So when we stopped at the fourth condition of the prayer, we started now in another topic which is connected with wudu, as we mentioned. We said that wudu also has its conditions. So wudu comprises of, or the conditions of it are, Islam, aql, and what? Tamyiz, and niyyah, intention. So the other ones we'll mention in a minute. We said last class that niyyah, intention, notice that great Imam that he mentioned in the PDF, what did he say? Istishab hukmiha, bi an la yanwiya qat'aha hatta tatimma tahara. That the hukum or the ruling of the intention, that it needs to be carried out through the wudu, starting at the beginning, of course, based upon what we mentioned about the niyyah. We talked about the niyyah and the details pertaining to it, the intention. So one carries out the ruling of it throughout that act, meaning of wudu. And he does not cut his intention until it is complete. He doesn't cut the intention until it's complete. And وَانْقِطَاعِ mujib. And the affair that made it, or made one in a state of impurity, that it completely stops. What did we say about that last class? That if a person is in the bathroom, if a person is in the bathroom, or they're utilizing, or they're relieving themselves, that the bowl or the urine and the defecation has to stop completely. That it has to stop completely. One purifies themselves, and then after that, like we said, they make wudu. So there's a little bit of details in that, but that is what we discuss. So we talked about the people who are from Ahl Ifrat or Ahl Tafrit. The people who are the people of Tafrit, people who are neglectful. And then we talked about the people of Ifrat, meaning the people that are excessive. The people that are excessive. So we talked about Tafrit, meaning the people who are neglectful in regards to them being hasty and not waiting for the najasa or for the impurities to completely stop before they embark upon performing wudu, as we said last class. So in the beginning, when one is in the midst of relieving themselves, they have to make sure, again, that the urine comes to a complete stop, and the defecation, of course. And we also spoke about passing wind. Passing wind. That a person, of course, that they relieve themselves, then they make sure that it comes to a complete stop. Then you want to ask him? You want to ask Abdur Aziz? Go ahead. Oh, it's not on the description. He didn't put it on there. No problem. So in qita' al-mujib, the matter pertaining to what will cause one's wudu to be invalid, it has to be what? It has to come to a complete stop, meaning when one is in the bathroom, as we said last class. So now if one is relieving themselves, then if a person is hasty, it's become for the people of tafrit. It's the people that have become neglectful. Whereas we talked about the najasa or the impurities has to come to a complete halt. Then after that, what does he do? Notice the order. It says wastinja أو استجمار قبله. استنجاء أو استجمار قبله. So if everyone is looking at the PDF or their book, this is what it says. So now once the mujib, and we said that the meaning of the word mujib in the Arabic language means sabab, means reason. Once the reason for you being in a minor state of impurity stops, which is, again, urine, feces, or passing wind. Once that stops, then one embarks upon purifying themselves by the method in our religion called istinja. Istinja. So once one is in the bathroom, again, this is what they would do. So they make sure that all those impurities stops. Again, then he embarks upon istinja or istijmar. So istinja, as we know, what is done with water. Istijmar is what is done with, in its origin, rocks. Rocks during the time, of course, of old. And what takes the place currently today is tissue. But istijmar, again, that was what was utilized, of course, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and before that. So in regards to that, is which one is more effective? You'll find that Ahl Ilm, they say, of course, they have maratib. They have different levels as far as this matter. You'll find that they say that which is the most preferred affair is to combine between what? Both. To combine between, of course, istijmar and istinja. Istijmar and istinja. That is the preferable affair. Is it obligatory? Not necessarily. But it's the most preferable step to use. What is what? What is istijmar and istinja? Combine between both. Then you have the level, what is what? Istijmar or istinja. In that instance, where a person could just suffice with one of the two steps, is permissible. One could do that. So in that order, that's the arrangement of what it is. How many? We talked about last class that if one utilizes the step of istinja, the least of what he's supposed to pour is 3. That's the least, as we said last class. The least is 3. If one wants to exceed or add to that, they can. Because at the most important is that the affair of naqa, the affair of purity, is what was carried out. So if one was to add 4, 5, 6, 7, of course, in order for the affair of purification to be complete, then he can or she can. The least amount of what could be used in istinja, as we said last class, is what, everyone? 3. So it cannot be less than what? 3. In regards to what they call istinja. Istinja. Istinja, as we said, is the utilization of what? Of water. How does one perform istinja in regards to the male? The male, not the female. Sound like someone probably come from downstairs. Istinja is one would take the water and we're just being frank in regards to how to do it properly or properly do it. The end of the private part of the man. We're talking about the man in this context here. At the end of his private part, he would take the water and pour over it 3 times at the end of his private part. He does not have to pour it all over the private part. I don't know where or who or when or how a Muslim learned that. I have no idea. Where they attain that information and that method, I have no idea. What it is you would take the end of your private part, the end of the private part for the man, and he will pour on the edge of his private part 3 times, because that's where the urine came out from. That's where you pour, and that's how one will purify themselves. In regards to what? Istinja. So that's how you properly do it in that instance. One can suffice with either one, as long as the affair of naqa, the affair of purity, happen. They can suffice with either which one. However, the level of what's preferable, which you'll find that Ahl al-Ilm mentioned to say that one should utilize both. But if they suffice by one of the 2 matters, as we said, then that's permissible, absolutely. But like we mentioned, what is more preferable is to combine between both steps. So in that instance, as we said, this shows that our religion is a religion of purification. It's a religion to try to maintain one being purified as much as possible in the aspect of belief and in the aspect of the physicality, meaning in the outward or external affairs, meaning the body itself. So it's not permissible to embark upon worship of Allah and you have impurities or tangible impurities upon yourself. So those matters, like we said, is of the utmost importance for one to remove. And like we mentioned, it said, it is not befitting to be very neglectful in this matter due to the narrations that we mentioned of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said that he passed by the graves of those 2 people, or 2 of his companions from his ummah, or 2 of the people from his ummah that were being punished in the grave, and one of them as a result of them being neglectful in purification and purifying themselves from urination. And we also spoke about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, as it says in the narration, عَامَّةُ أَهْلِ الْقُبُورِ وَإِسْتَنْزِهُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ فَإِنَّ عَامَّةَ عَذَابِ أَهْلِ الْقَبْرِ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ. As we talked about this narration, where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, he said, be on guard against urine. إِسْتَنْزِهُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ. Be on guard against urine. Meaning make sure that you fulfill the proper way. But however, don't be excessive, and we'll talk about that in a minute. People who are excessive, as we said last class. But the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, be on guard and be cautious from urine. He said, for verily, the majority of the people of the grave are punished because of urine. Meaning people being neglectful in that matter. Similar to what we see the non-Muslims, how they utilize the bathroom, which is being very neglectful. You'll find that they urine in the urinals and they zipper their pants up and dash out the bathroom without any form of purification, without any form of care or heed towards proper etiquette in regards to relieving oneself. Just to let you know, our religion is a religion of purity, uprightness, and for one to maintain what, everyone? Hygiene. To maintain hygiene. So in that instance, as we said, to utilize both is what is preferable in order to keep oneself purified. Like the next extreme, as we said, is called Ahl al-Ifrat. The people who are excessive. As we talked about this last class, about people who are tested with whispers. Muwaswis. As you'll find, there are people out there that are excessive in cleanliness to the point is considered something of the trick of the devil. You'll find that as a person cleaning themselves for a half an hour to an hour and a half in the bathroom. And to the point they even utilize certain methods that could even possibly hurt themselves in the aspect or in the name of so-called purification. So to be in that aspect, that's also incorrect. However, as we said, the best of affairs is the moderate approach. So one, to maintain that moderate approach and what we just explained, that is what is important for one to, of course, to be upon the correct path. So a person is not from Ahl Tafrit, nor are they from Ahl Ifrat. Tafrit is the people who are neglectful, Ifrat is the people who are excessive. And that the proper position is to be in the middle. To be in the middle. And that's what we mentioned last class. So keep in mind, we're still talking about the affairs pertaining to the fourth condition of the prayer, which is purification and removing the state of minor or major what? Impurity. So that's what we've been discussing. So again, purification, Islam, aql, tamyiz, intention. And as he continues to say, the affair pertaining to intention of wudu and what one does when they're in the bathroom, making sure, like we said, any of those affairs of najasa, of impurities are cut, then they utilize the method of istinja or istijmar. Before it, then you'll find that he continues. Let's speak about the new topic today, tahuriyatu ma. Tahuriyatu ma. And that's what we'll discuss today. So he mentions the other matter pertaining to wudu. We're still speaking about wudu here. Wudu, again, tahuriyatu ma. The purification of the state of the water that one uses. The purification of the state of water that one uses. And if you look, it says ibahatuhu. We'll talk about this. And that the water is allowed. What does that mean? We'll talk about that in a minute. A person might say, what is allowable water? We'll talk about that in a minute. So in that instance, tahuriyatu ma wa ibahatuhu. You'll find that he actually made this one condition. The purification of water and it being permitted. The purification of water and it being permitted or allowed. We'll speak about the reason why he says it like that. So you'll find that it says al-ma, water, that it has to be what? Tahur, if one wants to make wudu with it. So if he now purifies himself with water that is najis, la yasih al-wudu, of course. And there's some other details, but I'm trying to keep this simple. So one now asks the question, if they was to utilize water that's impure or some type of najasa, impurity fell into it. The affair revolves around, as we'll speak about, a little bit of water. From a container of the time of old, you'll find that they used to utilize containers or the qirba or the animal skins that used to contain or hold water within it, and all the different vessels that would be utilized for this matter. In that instance, we know that the amount of water is what? Is less. It's basically a little bit amount. As far as the copious amounts or the amount like the river or the ocean, we'll talk about that next class. What we're speaking about now is a vessel or something in a container where there's a little bit of water. So that's the topic of today. As far as in regards to water that's constantly moving, or that which is in a river, or what they call nahar rakid, still water, or any affair connected with that, we'll speak about that next class, because that affair is what that's not what we're going to speak about today. We're going to speak about the small amount of water that's utilized. Like, if a little bit of water is utilized, for example, a little bit, or a small amount, and some form of impurity falls into it, do we say it's impure or not? Just to keep it simple, because like we said, we want to move. The affair of najasa, if it's a little small amount of water, is that water that one of the three characteristics of it was changed, as we know. The affairs of jurisprudence, this is what we say about the small amount of water. If one of the three characteristics of the water was changed, such as, number one, rihuhu, ta'muhu, or lawnu. 3. Rihuhu, lawnuhu, or ta'muhu. Its color, its smell, and its what? Its taste. So all three of those characteristics is what we mentioned in here. So one of the three, if it changes. So again, those are the three what? Qualities that were mentioned in here in this what? Context. Loan, rih, ta'am. Color, taste, or what? Smell. Now, if something impure falls into it, just like we mentioned, bowl, a little bit of drops of urine, or anything of some form of impurity. For example, if it's a small amount of water, so keep in mind that the affair revolves around small amount here. So let's just say something fell into it, something of impurity. It changed all these three, of course, or let's just say one. It changed its smell, its color, or what have you. So now the water has become what? If it becomes mutaghayyir or mutanajjis. So now it's become change. So in this instance, one would what? One would absolve, or what he would disdain or abstain from usage of it, because if he used to use it, the wudu would be what? Invalid. Let's just say, like we mentioned, something of droplets might have fell into it. Something. You have a container of water, a little bit of droplets might have fell. But none of the actual characteristics that we just mentioned of the three didn't change. You'll find that al-ilm that they mentioned that this type of matter has a little bit of difference in it. But we'll just mention, like we said, this summary. You'll find that they say if the water is a small amount, then the water is najis. And it's not permissible for one to utilize so they can purify themselves with it at all. Due to the fact that the water is what? It's small. What is ahwat, what is coarse? What is preferable is that one what? Stay away from it. Due to the fact, like we said, something of najasa fell into it, then what is ahwat, what is more protective for one's religion, so they don't fall into khilaf, is that they do not what? Utilize it. Due to the fact that the water is what? It's a small amount. So one does not want to now expose themselves to khilaf in this regard. Even though you'll find that from Ahl-Ilm say that none of the awsaf, the three categories, changed at all, then it remains upon its tahuriyah. But in that instance, like we said, if it's a small amount of water, some form of najasa fall into it, then what is more preferable, more protective for the dhimma, or the responsibility or obligation for one to free his religion of any form of differences, then they what? Refrain from it. So that's what we're mentioning here in this particular what? Instance of the small amount of water in that regard, as far as najasa, as far as impurity. So impurity falling into something of water, it's a small amount, and we talked about the what? Three characteristics again, which is the color, the smell, and the what? The taste. Good. Excellent. So that's the first. If something of impurity falls into it. Good. As for now, the second matter in regards to water, what they say, what they call a tahur in regards to what has remained upon how it was created, such as water that comes in the form of rain, or the form of a well, or the form of a mountain, or those type of matters, or in the form of ice, snow, all of that. That type of water is called al-baqin ala khilqateh. That has been remained in the state of how it was what? Made or created. Is it now permissible for one to make wudu with it? Absolutely. Whether it be a wells, whether it be springs, whether it be ice, snow, or what have you. Barud, doesn't matter. Let's just say now in an instance, for example, that something pure falls into it. Something pure might fall into it. So you have some water, some droplets of something pure falls into it, which is soap. Let's just say, for example, a little bit of soap fell into it, or let's just say, what's another example we could give? Some water, soap, a little bit of soda, a little bit of something that one can now consume. Or a little bit of flour. Let's just say flour from when one's cooking or what have you. A little bit of flour falls into the water. What do we say? Same thing of the qa'idah a couple of moments ago applies. What do we say? What's the three characteristics? Taste, smell, and what? Color. So one will what? Look at it. Look at the water. So now one of the characteristics changed. So now one is mixed wudu and he looks at it. Might be a little droplets, But the water is still upon what? The actual affair of water where none of the characteristics change. Can he still make wudu with it or not? What do we say? Absolutely. As long as the affair of the water or the characteristics did not change. For example, a little bit of ink might have dropped into it. A little bit. Little droplets of what? Flour, soap, what have you. Drop into it. Didn't change any of the characteristics of those three, as we mentioned. In that instance, again, as we said, then one can make wudu with it. Why? Because nothing had overridden its characteristics. Now, if it's a lot of soap falls into it, where it overrides the characteristics of what we just mentioned, then what, everyone? It becomes something totally different. Where you can see clearly, look at it, it's not water anymore. Something totally what? Different. You can smell it, or you can smell it, you can see the color of it. And of course, taste by all means if it's something of juice or have you. In those type of instances, once it's now have changed in that regard, then is it permissible to make wudu with it or not? Kool-Aid falls into it, even though who drinks Kool-Aid these days. But in regards to soda, let's just say soda. Soda falls into it. Person now, or Vimto. Vimto falls into it. Falls into the water until it completely, the color is what? Changed. It's permissible to drink Vimto. Right, everyone? But is it permissible to what? Make wudu with it? That's the issue. Due to the fact that it's not mutahhir li ghayri. We'll talk about that in a minute. Huwa mutahhirun bi nafsihi wa laka ghayru mutahhir li ghayri. It's pure in itself, but it doesn't purify anything else. So if you intended just to drink something, that's something different. But to utilize it to be a form of purification for prayer, then what? No. Is it clear, everyone? And that's what we'll talk about. They say, mutahhirun bi nafsihi wa ghayru mutahhirin li ghayri. It's purified in itself, it's pure, or tahirun bi nafsihi ghayru mutahhirin li ghayri. It's pure in itself, but it cannot purify anything else. Meaning, it cannot be utilized for what? For wudu, for worship and preparation for worship, which is purification or wudu. But in actuality, it's still what? Still pure. It's still pure, but it cannot be utilized for wudu, as we said. So in that instance, as for example, let's just say ink. Ink falls into the water that you're using for wudu, little droplets. Again, droplets fell into it. What do we say? Of course, you can't consume ink. But if a person now, a little bit of drops, there's a vessel water, or what have you, a little bit of ink falls into it, or some ink falls into the water. What do we say? Why? What's the characteristics? Color, smell, and what? Taste. If it has not changed any of those characteristics, then a person can still utilize it for what? Wudu. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a good example. It's ink falls into it. Again, ink falls into it. Something accidentally falls into it. Flour falls into it. Let's just say baking soda falls into it. It's the same thing. So baking soda, flour, cake, whatever. It doesn't matter. If a little bit falls into it, then what again? You still can make wudu with it as long as what? As long as the taste, the color, or the what? Smell has not changed. Other than that, you still can utilize it for wudu. Excellent example. Anything else, anyone? Absolutely. I said if you wanted to utilize one of the two. Istinja? Absolutely. Absolutely. Purification for istinja, or purification from bowl or feces is obligatory. Absolutely. For utilize istinja, that's what we just said. We said that a person now that they embark upon a prayer, they have to wait. It's obligatory for them to wait until the urine comes to a complete stop. That's what we said. Before they embark upon wudu, then they have to purify themselves, either by utilizing what? Water or stones, but we know in these days and times, what takes its place is tissue. Tissue. In that instance, just to keep it simple, there's a lot more details in regards to the jurisprudence aspect of that. But like we said, we're trying to keep the class basic as much as possible. But anyway, yes, that's obligatory. A person cannot make wudu until they purify themselves properly. Legislatively within the religion, from Kitab and Sunnah, where water is utilized, or like we said, stones, or like we mentioned in that place, what takes its place is again tissue, as we said. So you want to come? Okay. Good. Fadal. That time blew very fast. That was seemed like it was only talking about 20 minutes. Yeah, by all means, we mentioned and said that the usage of water to purify oneself properly before they make wudu is what is paramount, no doubt. Due to the fact, as we spoke about the narration, so the Prophet ﷺ, for those men who are being punished in the grave as a result of being neglectful in urine, not preventing the urine to falling on their clothes, or as we said in the narration, person exposing themselves indecently or indecent exposure. As one of the narrations says, "Kana la yastatiru min bawlih." One of them says, "Kana la yastanzihu min bawlih." And one of them says, "La yatanazzahu min bawlih." And another narration it says, "Wala yastabri'u min bawlih." It says all four. It says that one says, like, "Kana la yastatiru min bawlih." Kana la yastatiru min bawlih. He said that one of the narrations, the Prophet ﷺ said that he didn't used to properly cover himself from the urine. One of the Ahl-Ilm say that the meaning of it is that he would not relieve himself in a manner where he would protect his outer from being exposed. So he would expose himself in an indecent manner, where everyone could see his outer. So that's one of the meanings of the narration. They say. So a person that indecently exposes themselves in that regard, then they fall into the warning that the Messenger of Allah said. Another narration that says, "Kana la yastabri'u yastabri'," that he used to protect himself from it falling on him. He used to protect himself that it would what? Fall or soil his clothes, or fall on his body, or what have you. So in those instances, like we said, those are warnings to let you know that purification is obligatory. Purification while one is in the bathroom and they relieve themselves, and after they finish, it's obligatory for them to make or perform or utilize one of these methods that we said, either istinja or istijmar, and we talked about the meaning of istijmar. So before istijmar, istijmar bil-ra, that is an instance where one use rocks And who knows, like we said, it might go back to those days again. Who knows what will happen? Because, like we said, the day of resurrection, that based upon what it indicates is that a lot of these technologies eventually will stop soon. Eventually, we'll have to go back to utilizing certain instances. And then in that instance, then these ahkam would apply. These ahkam would apply. And Allah knows best of when it will happen. Allah knows best. But the point of the matter is that's the origin. The origin is the Jamal, rocks. But as we said, what is utilized or what is known amongst the people these days is tissue. What is preferably, or what is a preferable method is to combine between both. To continue, as we said, we said the different types of water. As we said, number one, we're talking about the small amount, but there's more details that we'll give next class. The small amount of water, we mentioned, it said a little bit of najasa falls into it. Of what we said, mahallu khilaf between ahl ilm, a little bit of differences, but what is unanimously better is that one abstains from it. Something of impurity falls into it, then one abstains from its usage, especially if it's a small amount. As far as a large amount, we'll talk about that, such as the sea, such as a river, and the water's constantly moving. Some najasa can fall into it and it not affect it, and one can still utilize it for wudu. That's a separate topic in regards to what? Copious amounts of water, or a large amount of water, or water that's constantly moving. That we'll talk about, because the hukum for that changes. So the affair, what we're speaking about now, is small amount in the vessel or what have you. So if one is utilizing that in that instance, these are the details that apply to it. So if some form of najasa falls into it, again, if it's a small amount of water that's being used and najasa falls into it, what is ahwat? They say what is more protective for one's religion is to not use it. So they don't subject themselves to mahal khilaf, of differences between ahl ilm in that regard. Wadih? Is it clear, everyone? طيب. The second type of water, as we said, is the water that's baqin ala khilqatihi. That it remains upon its khilqah, how it was created. In those instances, one can utilize that for wudu. As we said, ma'ul anhar, ma'ul abar, ma'ul amtar, ma'ul thalj, bard, to the end of it. As we said, water of snow, ice, what have you, wells, ocean, lakes. That type of water one can what? Use, absolutely. They can use for wudu. In the instance where something pure, as we said, that might fall into it. Something pure. Whereas there's... Let this pass by. In the instance where you'll find that the ahl ilm that they say, and we're talking about small amount of water now, again, everyone, that is tahir bi nafsih, ghayr mutahhirin li ghayri. That's pure in itself, but it cannot purify what? Anything else. Meaning it cannot be used for wudu. But one can still what? Utilize it. Soap falls into it. You can use it for other things. Use it to clean your body off. You could use it to clean up other things within the house. What have you. But to utilize it for worship, for wudu, one cannot use it if one of what? The three qualities have been changed. Which is, again, rihuhu, lawnuhu, wa ta'mu. Its wind or its smell, its what? Its color, and its what? Its taste. Good. If those affairs have been changed, one cannot utilize it for what? Wudu. But he can utilize it for other things. He can utilize it for other things. But he cannot utilize it for wudu, as we said. So to conclude with what we just mentioned, the types of wudu, for example, tea falls into it. Everyone can drink tea, falls into the water. A little bit of tea falls into it. Just some drops. You ever use in a vessel? Drops of tea fell into it. Can I use it for wudu? Absolutely. As long as... Exactly. That's simple. There's some other slight details, but that's enough. But that's what the origin is in that regard. Okay, everyone? Just keep it basic, straight to the point. طيب, so let's keep going. So that's the type of water that can be used. As long as we said that it does not become something different where it overrides. The characteristic of water, for that instance, if that's not the case, then a person can utilize it again for wudu. That's tahuriya to ma. So that's tahuriya ma. That's what you'll find in the PDF. What does he say again? Tahuriya to ma. Tahuriya to ma. Purification of water. What did Dion say? Dion said he didn't put it in the description. He said he couldn't do it. He did put it in the description below. In YouTube, it's there. So the description what the PDF is for what we're using. Before we move on to ibahatuhu, the allowed water, everything we mentioned is clear. So let's now move to the next matter what he's speaking about, rahimahullah. He said, ibahatul ma, water that's allowed. Allowed. So you'll find that from the conditions, rahimahullah, that he says that water has to be mubah. It has to be allowed. What does that mean? He means that wudu cannot be utilized with water that's maghsoob, meaning it was stolen or it was utilized or upon a land that someone owns. For example, a person might have built a well on their land, or they built some source of water on their land that they purchased and they own it clearly. Whether it be a machine, whether it be a well, whether it be a spring, they dug it out or what have you. In that instance, a person from someone just walking in the road goes on upon their property and uses it. That's what you'll find that he's saying here. No one said you can use it. Type, is this wudu now, is it valid or not? That's the question. So that's why he mentioned this condition here. He said water that is allowed. Ibahatuhu, ibahatul ma. The water being allowed for its usage. So, I'm sorry. So in that instance, as we said, everyone, that's what he's talking about in this particular condition. Is it allowed or not? That's the question. Or excuse me, rather is wudu valid or not? That's the question. Mahala khilaf between Ahl al-Ilm, you'll find some of them saying, for example, they say it's similar to a salat. We want to get into the topic of, and this is just a side benefit, you don't have to write this down. Person prays in clothes that was stolen. Or person prays in a garment that was stolen. Or some form of fraudulent transaction was done, where it was purchased in an unlawful, illegitimate way. Is it permissible, allowed now to pray, and is your prayer valid or not? Ahl-Ilm, there is some Ahl-Ilm saying salah is batil. Some of them do say that, absolutely. And that's similar to wudu. Then you'll find, as we'll talk about the Jumhur and what we're speaking about wudu here, they say wudu is valid, but he's sinful. Wudu is valid, or the salah is valid, but however, they're what? They're sinful. Alayhim ithim. That's what you'll find, and Allah knows best. I don't want to get too much into details in this because this now we're going to go to a whole nother level of fiqh in this regard, which we're trying to keep it basic. You'll find that is what is strong here. That a person that utilizes water that's not permitted or allowed, their wudu is valid, but the fact that you went on and used it from a source that wasn't allowed, guess what? You're sinful. You're sinful. That's a rajih, inshallah. That is what is strong in regards to the evidences. As far as the salat is similar to that and all those other matters, again, we say the salat is what? Valid. However, what is ahwat, what is more considered protecting one's dhimma or absolving from falling into something permissible or going to those gray areas or what have you to preserve your religion in those instances, that a person should stay away from that. Don't enter yourself into what? Gray areas. Stick to affairs that are what? Clear. As we come, and that also falls in the hadith again in Arba'ina wa Nawiyah. You'll find the importance of why people should what? People want to specialize in a religion, they should memorize that book. You see why? See, the whole religion still goes back to what? Those narrations. As you'll find in the narration, what did the Messenger of Allah say that the great Imam mentioned in Arba'in Nawawiyah? He said that Allah made the halal clear, and He made the what? Haram clear. And between them are what? Gray areas. A lot of people are not aware of. To the end of the hadith. So notice that all of the religion goes back to those narrations, what he said, rahimahullah, in Arba'in Nawawiyah. If we have some more time, we'll go over that because we got to hurry. I don't have that much time left to speak. Time flies. So in those instances, what is ahwal? To absolve from what? Absolve from that matter so one does not subject themselves or expose themselves to, as they say, mahalu khilaf. So to keep your religion preserved, stick to affairs that are what? Clear. Stick to the matters that are, well, they or keep giving details. Fine. Now, in that instance, let's move on to the next. So let's read the line. Let's go back to the PDF. What does it say? وانقطاع موجب واستنجاء أو استجمار قبله وطهورية ماء, and purification of water. We talked about the different kinds of what? Water. Right, everyone? Give a little bit of details in that. Like I said, we're trying to keep it basic as much as possible. It gets a little bit more detail, but we'll mention the next class, the copious or the huge amount of water. That's something totally different. Or water that's in what they call nah or ma'un rakid, still water. That has nothing to do with the toilet. Nothing. There's a reason why I'm saying that. Because certain people, I've heard some weird stories. People reading books and then they utilize in the bathroom outside. No, it's not the meaning. Yes, I've heard some weird stories. In my time, I've been Muslim up to this moment. I've seen and heard some strange things. And when you go overseas to study with the ulama and really sit with people knowledge, you'll realize all the errors that's taking place in this land. A lot of errors. Due to the fact that people stick to books and they're too arrogant to want to learn at the hands of proper qualified people because they think they know everything. So in those instances, everyone, it's binding upon to sit in knowledge where you attain knowledge properly and you abstain from falling into errors. And in certain instances, it becomes very weird, very strange to be utilizing the bathroom outside and things of that nature. Those affairs, like we said, is strange. Not to be utilized in the bathroom, but I'm going to go outside somewhere. Like you said, it's something that we said does not apply here as far as still water in a toilet. That's not what it's speaking about. Okay, everyone? We're talking about a river, a huge river. A river where the water is what? It's not moving. A rocket. Pond, river, all of that. It applies for that too. So in that instance, again, that's a separate what? Topic. Especially water that's constantly moving. That the whole hukum changes. Again, so let's keep reading. The next thing you'll find he mentions, وَإِزَالَةُ مَا يَمْنَعُ وُصُولَهُ إِلَى الْبَشَرَةِ. And this is where we'll end. Again, everyone. The next, he said, water that's allowed. Then he says, in regards to the water, or regards to, everyone. In regards to wudu. Wudu, also, what has to be removed is anything that does not allow the water to penetrate the skin. Removal of everything that does not allow the water to what? Penetrate the skin. From a manicure, and here we go, I know the thing is coming. I know the question has been asked for the past 10 years. For the nails that everybody says a halal fingernail, where the water actually penetrates under it. I see the question coming already. We'll talk about that inshallah. But in the instance of what is important for a Muslim to know, especially he's embarking upon trying to perfect his worship, anything that prevents the water from penetrating your skin, it has to be removed. Whether it be paint, whether a person is working in the areas of what they call al-mi'mariyah or al-imarat or bina al-mabani or what have you, architects or working in architecture or buildings, or painting or what have you. Some of that material falls on your what? on your body. Paint, all those matters has to be what? Removed. Due to the fact when one performs wudu, it will prevent the water from hitting the water directly or hitting the skin directly. Or penetrating the skin, of course, meaning touching the skin. If it doesn't touch the skin, the wudu is what? It's invalid. So keep that in mind. Then one needs to be on guard against anything. Especially, I think, in certain people that are fishermen, they cut the fish. I think the fish has some type of material, some type of substance or something that sticks. For people who work in the sea or what have you, or they're fishermen or however they know about this. There's some form of substance that it's real sticky. Certain fish have it. You cut it, it sticks. In that instance, it has to be what? Before you make wudu, it has to be removed. It has to be removed due to the fact that it stopped the water from running over the skin. So in that instance, one cannot make wudu with it. One cannot make wudu properly, I meant to say, to the point where it is valid. So if it does not penetrate the skin again and it covers all the skin, in that instance, like we mentioned again, the wudu is invalid. The wudu is invalid. So any type of substance, no matter what it is, ayyuma jurmin, any substance that prevents the skin or blocks the skin from the water penetrating on the skin to properly perform it in that method or that proper manner, then again, it will render your wudu invalid. That's the reason why you'll find again that he mentions here, وَإِزَالَةُ مَا يَمْنَعُ وُصُولَهُ إِلَى الْبَشَرَةِ, removal of what will prevent it penetrating the bashara, the skin. Well, bashara means actually what? Complexion, but it's understood as skin here. Jild also means skin, but also means leather. But at any rate, al-bashara. So anything that prevents it, it has to be again, removed first, and then you what? Then you make wudu. It has to be removed first, and then you what? Good. Ahsant. Mumtaz. How much time we have there? 5 minutes? 4 minutes? Last thing we'll continue next class. So now let's finish up the point because we have 4 more minutes. So he'll find that he goes on to say, rahimallah, وَدُخُولُ وَقْتٍ عَلَى مَنْ حَدَثَهُ دَائِمْ لِفَرَضِهِ أو لِفَرْضِهِ. What do you put the sukoon on the ra? Oh, عجيب. مَنْ حَدَثَهُ دَائِمٌ لِفَرْضِهِ or لِفَرْضِهِ. So when a person now has some form of sickness, and that's what he's speaking about now, in this last part, if a person has some form of an ailment where their hadith is da'im, they always have it, such as continence, or if a woman has what they call istihadah. Istihadah. So we know istihadah for our sisters. If I have a separate class, I'll talk about that separately for them. Because we know that the woman comprises of 2 types of blood in regards to her monthly cycle. You have what they call hayd, and you have istihadah. Hayd is actual immense. Then you'll find after her mens, so that her usual days is over, some blood might continue where it exceeds the normal days which she has her mens. In that instance, it could be what they call istihadah, which is a form of a hemorrhage where she can still pray and she can still fast because it's not considered a mens. We'll talk about that on another occasion. That has a lot of details, and our sisters are very familiar with it. For those who I've taught that class to 10 years ago, we went over this very in depth. I went over this class with our sisters in depth about the different types of blood for the women, and they know how to deal with it. But at any rate, that type of blood, again, everyone, like if they have what they call istihadah, if they have istihadah, where they're still bleeding, but it's not immense. So in that instance, what would they do? Here, what does he say? They wait for the time the salat come in. Of course, there's some other details. They would also wash themselves, purify to the best of their ability. And in the instance where a man has what they call continence, salasul bowl, which is them constantly where urine is constantly what? Emanating from them. What's coming out, where they can't control it, they can't hold it. In that instance, again, they will wait till the salat come in, purify the area to the best of their ability, even though it's still coming out. It's still coming out, or make wudu, and still pray, even though it's still what? Even though it's still exiting or coming or emanating out of them, or still exiting out of them. And in that instance, it's ma'fuun an. It's overlooked. So that's what he's speaking about here. He's speaking about an example, the women that have istihadah. Istihadah, you still can pray. But some form of blood is still coming out. So what does she do? Purify, of course. Make wudu, it comes in, and still pray. And what still comes out of her, then it's overlooked. As far as it pertaining to the man, similar to that, he has what they call continence, where urine is still coming out because he has that sickness. May Allah give us and you refuge. But in that instance, if a person has what they call salasul bowl, urine is coming out, then in that instance, that's what they would do. They still have to make wudu. But they purify the mahal, the place where the urine is, of course, put water on it, purify it to the best of their ability, and make wudu, pray, and what comes out is overlooked. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make a haraj upon the people in the religion. That's the best they could do, and in that instance, that's what is required. So we finished that part. So all of those are the conditions for wudu again. Just like the condition for the salat, we'll go over it again, don't worry. So the conditions for wudu is what? So keep in mind, what's the meaning of shart? Again, everyone, because we have to know these terms in the aspect of usul. So all these mabahith are usuliyah. They're mabahith usuliyah, these terms. But they all have their own reasons of why they mention. So a person would say, why does the ulama mention shurut, arkan, wajibat? Because they all have their own meanings to them. In regards to shurut, as we said, shart is something that's outside, that has nothing to do with the inside affair. As we said last class, we said this on many occasions, right, everyone? We said the shart is something outside that has nothing to do with the inside affair of that thing. A person would say, what are you talking about? For example, the salat, the condition of what all these conditions we mentioned, such as Islam. That's an affair that already has to be there, that has nothing to do with the movements or the statements of the prayer. But it has to be there in order for the prayer to be what? Exactly. But is it part of the actual movements and statements of the prayer itself? No. So shay kharij an mahiyati shay is something outside that if it's not there, it will render that thing inside what? Invalid. If that outside thing has not been actualized. So that's what we're talking about. And that's what we'll continue. So keep in mind, we finished the shurut. The conditions are finalized. Next week, we'll talk about the furud. The furud. The actual obligations. But as far as the conditions of purification, we finished it. So again, let's go over again. Islam, aql, tamyiz, niyah. Let's keep going. Good. Istishabu hukmiha. In order for the ruling or that the ruling of the niyyah, the intention, that it has to continue all throughout the performance of, exactly. So he cannot cut it. Let's just say something happens. Something happens, I forgot to mention. Something happens in the midst of wudu. Somebody might come in, you make a wudu in the bathroom, somebody, your child, one of your kids, boom. It's happened to me before. My little daughter come in, boom, open the door. So you stop, take her out the bathroom, you lock the door, and then you continue wudu. Can you do that or not? Or do you have to start over again? Nope, you don't. Continue. Because in actuality, you did not make intention of what? Cut it. So in that instance, you can continue. Absolutely. Shut the door, go back, continue where you left off. The water's still wet. And we'll talk about what they call muwala. Muwala will come. Muwala. Muwala is, let's just say you might have missed something. Those details we'll talk about when it comes. So all of those are the conditions and what we just mentioned, and the slight details that comes along with it. But we'll stop here. It's almost time for Iqamah. Iqamah time? What time did it come in? 7:32. Oh, it did come at 7:32. Oh, then we was going for a long time. We have to stop. Thought we would stop. نكتفي ولعلنا نكتفي بهذا القدر وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. تفضل. I'm sorry. In an instance where if a person does have a sickness, absolutely. If it's a sickness, the doctors have told you clearly you have a sickness. You understand? You could be diagnosed with it, or you know something is going on with you. So in that instance, if you pass wind constantly and you know it's something of a sickness or an ailment, then yes, absolutely, it applies. Make wudu to the best of your ability. And if that instance where that does happen, then fear Allah to the best of your ability, still pray. And if something comes out and pass wind, it's overlooked. Ma'fuun an. But one has to make sure that he's doing the best of his ability to what? Cut it, to stop it. All right? But the same thing applies, absolutely. Anything else, anyone? Fadal. That doesn't break your wudu. A little bit of blood comes out your teeth after you make wudu doesn't break it. No, ru'af doesn't break it. We'll talk about that in a minute. Ru'af, that doesn't break your wudu. Fadal. The nosebleed, they call it ru'af. Ru'af is called a nosebleed. It doesn't break your wudu. Mm-hmm. Your water's still dripping and wet? No, that's what I'm trying to get. If your hands have to dry, you start to move. That's what they call muwala. In that instance, you should start over again. Because of the muwala was cut and it dried. So in that instance, you should renew it. But if it's still wet, the limbs have not dried, just continue, stop where you stepped off, where you left off and continue. In the instance salat, that's not permissible. What I'm saying is you'll find that there's a practice out there where people will pray, and let's just say they broke their wudu in the middle of the second rak'ah. And then they may wudu, come back, and they think they can resume. No, you have to start over again. You have to start over again. That hadith was utilized, what people use is da'if. They talk about the person that comes, that they break wudu, they nullify their purification during the prayer, they go to make wudu and come back and then resume where they left off. Can they continue or not? No. You have to now renew your wudu and start over again. You have to start from the beginning. You cannot, in your salah, resume where you left off. You can't do that. No. And the hadith they utilize for that is da'if. I think Hafiz ibn Hajar mentioned bulugh. But the reason why he mentioned it is for this reason I just said. Because people utilize it as a dalil to what? To say I can continue where I left off. And he mentioned it in there to show it's weak. You can't use it. Can't use it. It's weak. Tafadal. Well, that's going to come. Ghusl's coming. It's coming. Ghusl, all that we're going to speak about. And if you notice, muwala is coming. Tartib, we're going to talk about the order, how you do it again. And muwala. We're going to talk about muwala. Muwala is the order where it is on the proper parts. And what happens when you leave certain parts dry. All those details is coming. Everything. So all those things we mentioned, all these details we gave will be again mentioned. What about ghusl? I know that you cannot. It's just in you. You can't. Be patient. Tafadhal. Go ahead. Uh-huh. Okay. Can't do that. No. You have to use soap, take a proper shower first, which is called istihmam. Istihmam, tastahim. That's called a shower with water and soap. Wash the private part. You do your purification with soap or what have you. Then you make a separate legislative ghusl from Kitab and Sunnah. You cannot combine between both at the same time. You can't do that. So you take your shower first with your proper scents and all that. Then separately you will make a legislative ghusl based upon the fact that we'll talk about it in a minute. It's coming. Making wudu. Then knowing how to also make a proper ghusl. We'll talk about that. All right? We'll talk about that. It's coming, inshallah. طيب صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب